And we are live. Hello, and thanks for tuning in. This is the SuperBoss Podcast, and I'm one of your hosts, Ian Eatwell, and I'm joined by Harrison
What up?
and Luke.
Hello, hello.
We talk about what's going on in the nerd world, ranging from movies, comics, to video games. And if you're a new listener, we'll start by talking about what we've been up to lately, and then we'll get into the topic. Yeah, and today that topic is going to be concerning the new Cyberpunk game that just released, that everybody is losing their mind about.
You may or may not have heard about this little game called Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah. It's just an indie game, just on the outskirts. Probably haven't heard of it. No. Yeah, we're talking about Cyberpunk and a multitude of other games, because Cyberpunk, although being intense and insane, has also released with some bugs, and there have been a lot of other games that I'm sure we can come up with that have also had that.
100%.
So 100%, yeah. So I just want to talk about how that I just want to talk about that, and kind of I found that interesting. So, but first, Harrison, how you doing?
All they've been playing is Cyberpunk 2077. That's all
Cool.
I can say.
Yeah, he told me he already has 25 hours
I have,
on it.
well, now, waiting to do the pod because I have 27 hours now.
Yeah,
Harrison.
27.
I played essentially, so I didn't play the moment it dropped because apparently I had to reinstall. I pre-installed it, but then had to reinstall the game for some reason because it couldn't patch.
No.
There's a patch and it just couldn't load it. But my computer also blocked it because it was like, oh, like the antivirus just went off. And I'm like, wait, you didn't freak out when I installed the game. What the fuck?
Weird.
So, no, but that's all I've been playing just because I was like, it kind of works out with the topic. But yeah, 27 hours in. I don't
27
know.
hours in 2077?
Yeah. I don't know how far in the story because the progression percentage is really off. And I mean, I've read that as well, so.
Interesting.
But I have been playing more of like just messing around in the world too, just because because I wanted to see for myself, like, would I run into any bugs?
Right. I've heard the main story is actually pretty short.
Yeah,
but it's like the side quests are like numerous, like in Witcher.
Yeah, and I can definitely see it being on the shorter end. I can see how someone could finish it in 20 hours, like no problem.
Yeah,
like,
I think they were quoted saying they shot for a 20-hour main campaign.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's not
so
bad.
it's definitely more. This game is definitely more of it's how you play it,
right?
Which I've spoken in other podcasts where I do like that to an extent. So I mean, so far I'm having fun. I want to say I'm like a third of the way through the campaign because that's what it feels like at least.
Okay.
But
sick.
And then the map's not as big, luckily, because I think I don't remember what the comparison was to Witcher. I think it is bigger than Witcher, but it's not. I feel like it's more manageable, but I'm also fast traveling a lot. So, yeah, but yeah, so far that's all I've done, but we'll talk about that more probably.
You're missing out on a huge hobby turned monetization opportunity here. You gotta stream Cyberpunk. This is your gateway game. This is how you get big.
This is not the game.
It's not the game.
It's not the game. But
right.
The only other thing besides that, because I'm sure we'll talk about it more. I've read through because who's watched Demon Slayer?
Who's watched? I've watched Demon Slayer.
I didn't watch it.
Okay. Well, I finished reading. I read the entire thing, so I'm done.
Oh, cool.
Because I was like, you know what?
Did you like it?
No, it's really good. I can see why at one moment it topped One Piece on the charts. I think for like 1 month it topped it. I'm like, all right, I can see why. It's really good. It doesn't stop. Like anime, you guys are in for a ride. Holy fuck. I love it.
Hell yeah.
Now I'm trying to think of what else. Luke.
Ooh. Luke's got some opinions about that.
Say it.
Read Warm.
Oh, that, yeah.
That's what I was waiting for.
That's all I need to say.
That's all I was waiting for.
Luke, how are you doing? What are you doing? What are you up to?
I've been playing a lot more Ghost Recon. It's so the game is bleh. That's probably my summation. This is for Breakpoint, the new one.
Breakpoint. Okay, yeah.
Kind of there's like two reasons I started playing it. One, I got the Ultimate Edition for like $25, so it was a huge sale. And there are no tactical shooters out in the world, so I have to subjugate myself to whatever there is. So I'm playing it. But I'm enjoying it, I guess. Like one thing that's new in Breakpoint that was not in Wildlands was that they have a slightly more rigid class system.
Mm-hmm.
And as you level up, each class can level up to 20, and kind of at the far end of like starting from level 14 to 20, as you level up, you get these really cool cosmetics. So I'm just hunting for cosmetics because I'm a fashion slut.
Yeah.
But it's actually really nice because the way you level them up, you actually don't get experience. You have to do specific challenges that are somewhat tangentially related to the class you're playing. But it's a nice change of pace because they're really weird challenges sometimes. And so it just makes me have to like sit back and think instead of just shutting off my brain running around and shooting stuff.
Cool.
Let's see. I mean, I already said it, but I finished reading all the Nova comics, and I'm mad because there's like not that much Nova content out there.
Yeah. All right.
I've been watching. There's this one anime. I don't remember what it's called, but it's something my girlfriend and I are watching. It's basically finding love. I think it's like translated to finding love as an otaku. And it's pretty funny. One, it's relatable because it's like the main character is a girl who's like a super weeb, but she works at an office, and so there's like no one she can relate to. So she's like, "Oh, they can't know my secret. Oh no." But it's also nice because it's something I talked about with some of my other friends before. But there's so much anime that deals with like younger crowd. Like maybe you'll get into high school range for characters, but this is like, oh, these people are adults. They can go drinking.
Oh, wait, is it Love is Hard for Otaku?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, yeah, I love that show.
Oh, you watched it?
Yeah, that show's great.
Yeah, we're watching right now, and it's really funny.
It's hilarious. Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah, it's a pretty quiet month for me. Like, I didn't really have any interest in Cyberpunk. Like, I've been watching some people play it, but I don't plan on playing it. So, for me, I'm just kind of picking away at Ghost Recon.
Hell yeah.
What are you up to, Ian? 'Cause you also didn't get Cyberpunk, so I'm wondering what you're up to. Because I know you've been playing Hades, but that's it.
Yeah, been playing Hades. I have a 16-minute run on that right now. I'm starting to like upload some runs to YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm gonna like do like a video series about learning how to speedrun it. So I'll start at like my really bad like 18-minute run, and then I'll get to like a decent, hopefully, like sub 10 run. Hopefully. Man, what else have I been playing?
Hades. That's all you
Apex.
All I see is Hades when you're on.
Hades, yeah. Doing a lot of Apex. That's getting really fun. I never thought I'd be like a BR person, but
so
Apex is
I'm
really fun.
very curious. Is it Apex or have you guys tried Call of Duty at one point at all? Have you guys talked about it?
No, we haven't talked about it.
Because I keep getting people telling me, they're like, "Oh, if you like Apex, just try Call of Duty." I'm like, okay, I guess.
Interesting. Is it just like
they think the shooting's better, but it is. I mean, Call of Duty shooting is honestly pretty solid. Like me playing online, I'm like, I like this.
They've had like they've.
I mean, they've
been
like,
doing this for years.
They've had like a decade to perfect their shooting.
And they do it well.
But the plus for Apex is always the mobility.
Yeah. It's and I do I really love the mobility. I think here's what it is, Harrison. There's arbitrary stakes in a ranking system and a squad of friends. That's all you need to get me to play your game and have fun.
I was gonna say low key. The one thing that because one of our friends was talking about it and he was like, "Why don't you guys play Call of Duty?" I'm like, "Well, because Apex is honestly pretty solid." He's like, "Yeah, but they have only 3 squads, while Call of Duty has 4 squads." I was like, "Oh,
squad of 4s."
Yeah, they have quads. Yeah. I was like, "Oh, maybe." See, I didn't even think about that, but
I'd be open to trying it out. The other thing is I like the special abilities and things that Apex has. It just makes it more unique and interesting for me.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't want to say more unique and interesting than Call of Duty because I haven't played that, so I might enjoy that just as much. But there will be I'll play a few matches of Revenant, and then I'll be I'm gonna go back to Rampart because I want to play more I want to play differently, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Honestly, even for me, I don't play either of those BRs, but I still enjoyed Apex. I think another thing, at least for me, of what I enjoyed about Apex is aesthetically. Mm-hmm. It's just it's appealing and it's very clear. Call of Duty has very high fidelity graphics, but it is kind of realistic, and you don't get to have really crazy looking set pieces like you can in Apex. And maybe if they went back into if they did a Future War, Infinite War type BR instead of what they have now,
that'd be interesting.
They could go for it, but
no one liked
Apex. Yeah, no one liked them, but at least you would probably have a more interesting aesthetic to go for.
Probably. But it's also only been the first year, so they'll probably figure something out.
Yeah. I'd be down to try it. I haven't tried it, but
we also need how big is that download? You gotta set aside a lot of space.
No, because I don't know now, because they now let you manage it. Because before you had to download the entire Call of Duty, but now they actually let you break it up. Finally,
they separated it.
They finally let you separate it. I was like, Jesus fuck.
That's great. Jeez.
It took them that long. I was like, come on.
Yeah. That's about all I've been doing, but I wanted to, because this kind of harks back to when we were talking about, I think it was Luc's topic one day. It was the multiplayer type games. So if anyone knows me or just watched the show enough, I consume Day 9 content. And he has done a collab with a company called let me make sure I'm right here. Yeah, Big Bang. Yeah, they did a collab, and the game is called Straits of Danger, and it's really, really interesting. Basically, what happens is there's a ship, right? And you have to navigate this ship through this corridor, basically, this hallway, a strait, if you will, of danger. But you're having to navigate with 3 to 25 other people. And so it's a ship, and it has pressure pads all over it. And so you all have to stand on a pressure pad to make it go forward. But also you have to turn and make the ship follow the curves of the valley or whatever. And even more, you have to avoid all these obstacles, and there's also a gun on the ship, and you have to shoot things with it. It's really interesting, but the really cool part of it, so it's that kind of party game. And the really cool part is, as a streamer, Day 9's actually able to interact. So he can make a game and have all of his subscribers or followers get into the game, and then he's kind of the game master, quote unquote, where
what
he
is this
can
called again?
like Straits of Danger. If you just go to Big Bang Big Bang, yeah, it's like the first thing you'll see is Straits of Danger play now.
Interesting.
So yeah, you can click on like the obstacles and like make things happen to like, and then they added the most like recent build of it I've seen is they've added like Twitch chat votes to make it even harder or weirder. Sometimes there's like Twitch chat can like vote to have like rainbows coming out of the ship and the jetpacks. Because you're not just on the ship, you're also a robot that has a jetpack that has to like fly off to do other things outside of the ship. It's super cool, really interesting. I think this is going to be like really cool. And I want to this is the kind of stuff that I like wanted to see like implemented into Twitch or any kind of like streaming service, like having these kinds of like streamer and community games. I love this.
That's weird that it's kind of funny that you talk about that. I remember I was watching one of the streamers I like to watch is Scara, and he had his birthday recently. Him and Toast, Disguised Toast, and they actually talked about like they don't like interacting with their viewers that much, or like they try to avoid doing those like, oh, we're gonna play with my viewers today or something.
Really?
I wonder if that's only because they play, like, I mean, they play League, so maybe it's like a League or, I mean, Toast was known for TFT and Hearthstone. But I wonder if it's different because Day 9 does variety and or like StarCraft and Magic-related things. Because, yeah, Scar and Toast were like, we never want to play with our fans. And maybe it's just because it's their fans specific. Like, maybe they're just degenerates.
Yeah, maybe.
So I thought that was really funny. Then like, oh, I think it'd be fun to play with your fans, and then these two others like, I never want to play with my fans. I never want this. Never. Don't talk to me.
That's funny. Yeah, I Day 9 is very as like a streamer, he's very. That's another thing I find interesting is like streamers and they're different like. I don't know what you would say. I guess rules of chat. I guess because Day 9's very like you don't backseat game him. If you like start to get mad or something in the chat, you get like a timeout. Yeah. Like he's pretty strict on some things.
Go to timeout.
So yeah, it might just be like different communities of people, I guess. But it seems like such an interesting game, and it looks really fun. And it's really like accessible because it's just in your like browser. What are you gonna say, Harrison?
I was just curious, like, is this because just looking into it, is like, would this be fun like with our friend group, or would this be fun just because it's a Twitch thing?
See, I think the main thing is you can't talk to the other people. That's kind of like what makes it chaotic and fun. So if we were like all in a Discord, it might still be fun, but you wouldn't get the same experiences like you're playing with these people that you have, the only interaction you have is like spamming the streamer emotes that are there.
Right.
So I don't know. It might be that the game's like built to be like bad enough, if that makes any sense. Like built to be like hard enough to control that it would still be fun if we were all in a Discord. But I feel like that would be too I don't know what there's a word, but I can't think of it. But it'd be too easily cooperative, I guess.
Okay.
But might still be something to try. I don't know. It's free also, so. But yeah, that was just something cool that I saw recently. I think it's like I've seen some like Twitch compatible like games like this before, but I haven't seen something like this well made. So I think it'd be cool to like see more stuff like this. And going back to like Luc's topic, I think we probably will see more stuff like that. I think I kind of flipped my viewpoint on that. Well, yeah.
So I think the whole thing was more, I can see it happening, but I don't think it's the norm for like an everyday person. Still,
Right.
I still don't think that.
Was that the question? Okay, yeah.
At least from what I remember, like, is that going to be the thing going forward for everyone? I was like, no, for streaming probably, but
yeah. This would be more of like a community based thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's cool. If you guys don't have any more thoughts on that, we can just get right down to the nitty gritty.
Let's get nitty gritty.
The dirty top. All right. Harrison, you good?
Yeah.
Cool. Then. So I wasn't like I didn't have like a nice clean like sentence tagline to like describe this topic. But basically what I'll say is what we're talking about is games on release needing to be like hot fixed, or like patched, and what like, yeah. So games on release not being finished, I guess, or there being like a big problem that needs to be like fixed immediately, and kind of like what that is. The reason I find it interesting is mostly because I couldn't think of like another medium where that's a thing. Because I think I talked to you guys about this. It was like the closest thing I could think of was like the Snyder cut for Justice League in terms of movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll start.
I was
broad.
thinking of like the Sonic movie when they straight up just like,
yeah,
looks like we're redoing this.
But for that wasn't released yet.
Yeah, it's
so it's weird to have like a finished product like sent out that people buy, but then it's like, oh, we got to change this, and they have it's cool, like it's a good thing that they have the ability to do that, one, because you'll make people happier. But what do you guys think about like games getting released with bugs and other issues? Like, just as a broad statement, what do you guys think about that? Do you care?
So I think like if I was gonna break down this topic, it'd probably be like within two parts, because like when you have a game as a service type game, I think that's basically expected, where everybody knows the game isn't technically finished, and they're just going to have ongoing support as they keep, like, they drip feed content, and they also provide fixes and balancing. And I think that's just the nature of that type of game.
Yeah,
and
that's understood within the...
You have, like, a released game, which you would kind of expect if it's released, then it's done.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah. So I guess, like, for context, I'm currently working in the game industry. But I work right now in the mobile game field, but I had a year at AAA development studio. And I feel like it's just kind of going to be, at least from, like, my perspective, and I guess I can say it since the game was released, but, like, my studio worked with Bethesda and id, who are other big AAA titles. And I think the way games are going is it's kind of just going to be expected that, like, the game gets released and then you have day one patches. And then you have, here's 7 days. And then within these 7 days, you probably expect a hot fix of some sort. And it's for a variety of reasons. But,
okay.
Like, especially, like, if you look at AAA, like, you think of the big AAA games now. The games are just so big that I don't think it's not feasible to expect a game that big to just be pretty good on release.
Yeah. It's hard to, like, the scope of the game is so big that it's kind of hard to put that all on like a small QA team.
Yeah.
Like, here, find all our bugs.
Well, it's not even from my experience, it's that the QA teams catch everything. Like, we document everything. It's
okay.
Management, production, engineers having to sit down, like, what is acceptable to not fix so we can release it.
I see.
And
so it's more of like a clash between
it's like
marketing saying this game needs to be out this day, and
especially
like what
like
all they can do
with AAA, since with like the assumption with AAA is that you have multiple studios and multiple publishers working on it. Publishers are very keen on like, here's the release date, it comes out now. Like, unless you are like a first party developer or you have a lot of clout, you don't generally get to push back on releases. And so it's a matter of doing triage of, okay, we have these bugs and we need to decide how important it is to fix this, or can we just leave it and we'll take care of it later? Because I mean, that's what we did. Like, when I worked on the titles we worked on, we had meetings of like, okay, this is what we're releasing with. Like, next week, get ready to try and fix these issues so we can push a hot fix out.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting.
Especially when you throw in, like, you had Valhalla come out, and Valhalla is a massive game.
Right.
And, I mean, even, like, you have AC Valhalla, you have Ghost of Tsushima, I mean, Last of Us 2, maybe even, like, Miles Morales. Those are, like, pretty big games.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the nature of big games that things will slip through.
What about a consumer's perspective, Harrison? Because Luke just gave us the breakdown of like the inside.
Yeah, that was a very fast and loose interpretation of like what I've seen. So obviously every situation is going to be different, but that's kind of my perspective as someone who's worked in AAA before.
So, just in regards to bugs, I don't think it's anything new. Like, it's been happening for the last decade. Like, honestly, it's really funny to see how people complain about it. Not just like Cyberpunk, just like over time for every game. It's always like, oh, this game's gonna be amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then also when it comes out, it's like, what the fuck? Why are there bugs? This game, like the concept of the game being done, I don't think it's changed from when like you had like a game come out on like the N64, GameCube, all that stuff. Like when they say the game has gone gold, like they have to print out, like they essentially have to like put it on a disc and then it's set out and then they can't do anything. But I think with technology, it just allows us to do that, which it's like a double-edged sword, which like when someone gets the game before, it's like, oh, this game's actually trash, but they can't do anything about it. So now it's like, oh, now games you have the like developers have the ability to actually update and like give hot patches, or hot fixes and all that stuff and actually like make the game good. So then later on people will probably get it. Like we'll probably buy it. So to me it's nothing new because it's like I remembered this since Skyrim came out.
Yeah, Skyrim's a big one.
It's been almost 10 years with that.
And it still has so many bugs.
And that's just the thing, like the issue is I think the reason why developers and like publishers all worry about it is because when it drops, it's always like the first impression is important. So when it drops, that's what sticks with people's heads. People don't think about going back to the game because they're like, oh, that's probably a buggy ass game. And my other big experience with like that was Batman Arkham Knight or Arkham City even. But that's because there's like a lot of things like Luke was like saying going to the parts. I'm like, my thing is more one, the type of game it is. Like if it's open world, it's going to be the developers want to be ambitious. They want to put as much as they can because they want to like make the game as fun, right? But they also want to make it accessible to everyone. There's like all that shit. But it also it falls on the consumer because we all set these expectations and like you see it in the comments. You're like, oh, this game doesn't look next gen. The graphics look like ass. But it's a AAA, so then they're like, oh, we've got to push boundaries. That's just the system we've set up. Like every game's got to top the next one. Like what's the next big thing, right? And I think it's just like the expectations just get bigger and bigger. And I honestly, Cyberpunk, the expectations were really fucking. But I think it was also coming off the back of Witcher 3 because everyone was like saying, oh, Witcher 3 was so amazing. I'm like, yeah, it was. But I'm sure like no one remembers how like I was talking to Luke about this prior. I'm like, year one, like when The Witcher dropped, is vastly different with how it is now, because CD Projekt Red actually updated the game over time for like about a year for sure. But like they added the quality of life changes. Like they updated the menus. They updated like how you can do certain things, where when I first played the game was way different than how it'd go back now. Because I do want to go back and play it because my girlfriend's so interested in it. I'm like, here, I'll just stream it for like Witcher 3 just because I think it was a really fun game.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, even like, I think another big example of a game that had a pretty bad release and kind of got revived because the studio supported it was probably Destiny 2. Because Destiny 2 on release, I remember, got like pulled through the coals. Like people were just trashing that game. And now, like especially with Beyond Light and whatever the new expansion is.
Yeah, no, that was it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, like it's like at a pretty strong state, and Destiny kind of is the top of its. I mean, it doesn't really have a lot of competition, but it is like a relatively well-regarded title. But a lot of people either forget or didn't play. Like I never played Destiny 2 when it released. I played Destiny 2 when
Shadowkeep
New Light came out.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And it's also like, I think it's kind of the nature of how like the gamer audience as a whole and also the review websites kind of go off of. You hear a lot of it's almost like the vocal minority who, like, I mean, you look at the reviews for Cyberpunk and they were okay to really good. But for most people, like, they're just going to hear like, oh, CD Projekt Red has a new game. That's really cool. Or, hey, the same people who made Witcher 3 made a new game. I'm just going to buy it. You don't see as many people as you think really taking stock into what reviews say. They just want to play the new game. And it's also, we've kind of talked about this before, where the whole concept is like, oh, vote with your wallet. That doesn't really count, I think. A lot of vote for your wallet, I think, also falls in the vocal minority, or a lot of people will buy the game regardless or despite of bad press. And also for a lot of people, like, oh, you hear, oh, the like performance is really bad, the game's really buggy, we're having animations not work and all this, and then someone plays it and they don't see any of that, and like, okay, well, they're just making it up because the game's running fine for me.
Yeah, right. Just to jump off that, like with my experience, I've only ran into like a few bugs, but most of the reviews that I've read into, I've agreed in that there are bugs, but it's not like it's hindering my experience with the game. I'm still having a good amount of fun so far with the game. So it's like,
it's not something that's like deterring you.
Like
from
I'm still playing. Yeah, I'm still playing, and it's funny because like my girlfriend's friends, they're all like, I'm debating on buying the game. Then she's like, oh, Harrison's playing it, and he seems like he's having a lot of fun. I'm like, yeah, I am. It's just really hard to like say like, well, it depends on what you want out of the game, because also I think this is also another thing where Cyberpunk's one of those games where it's in that awkward state of it's next gen but also current or previous gen but also next gen. So they have to, and this is like a lot of other games that they had to. So this is my other point, really quick, was more when it comes to bugs, I think you also have to take into account like if it's only a PS or a PlayStation exclusive, or if it's like multiple platforms, right? I think
having to
I think that's one big thing.
Sorry, go ahead. I agree. Yeah, having to like make the game work for all these different platforms is definitely gonna add to the headache.
I don't envy CD Projekt Red because they're like in that weird in between state of, we have to support PS4 and Xbox One, but we also are releasing this for PS5 and Xbox Series X. And they even said like technically the game isn't even running on like the next gen level.
Yeah.
For PS5, like that's just a whole nother patch they have to throw in to actually make the PS5 and Series X versions run on the console. At the same time, at least like from my perspective as I guess someone who's a little more, I don't even know someone who pays attention more to the game industry, like ins and outs. It's like CD Projekt Red is expected to support the PS4 and Xbox to the same level as the other consoles. And it's like, I think the biggest example, because a lot of people I've talked to who are really big Witcher fans and really big CD Projekt Red fans, they're kind of willing to, and this isn't any of you guys, this is other people, just so it doesn't sound like I'm like calling you out without calling you out. They're willing to excuse the bugs because, kind of like Harrison said, like the precedent for CD Projekt Red to support a game for the next oncoming year or 2 or 3 is there. And I guess my counter is always, other studios don't get away with what CD Projekt Red gets to do. And it's mainly CD Projekt Red has so much goodwill from like game consumers. That's that's another thing where, going back to the original topic, Ian, is that if like some companies just have so much goodwill that they can afford to like do these kinds of things where, hey, we know it's broken, we're just going to work on it after release. We just want everybody to enjoy the game, and we'll continue support as we go on.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that factor. And then the other thing I was going to talk about is I think games as a service is such a new type of game. Like,
really quick, are you saying Cyberpunk's a games as a service? Okay. No. I was like, wait, hold up.
I'm just saying, like, that type of game is relatively new to the industry as a whole, I think. But I think AAA studios are looking to how games as a service developers handle things. And I think either directly or indirectly, they're just pulling on what the games as a service studios do. Because like those like games as a service studios and developers explicitly release games that are not finished and or are not at a satisfactory level in terms of bugs, but they can just continue to support them. And so and their fan base and consumers don't really mind.
Right, yeah. And you're balancing like what we need to make this at least fun to play, and then everything else we can fix along the way.
And like or Cyberpunk 2077 isn't necessarily a games as a service game, but I think it's completely within the realm of possibility that CD Projekt Red is doing what games as a service studios are doing, where we understand that the game is not in a stable state. We're going to release it anyway, and we'll just continue support. And like things will just kind of work out in the end.
I somewhat agree. I also just think we just happen to be able to slap on the phrase games as a service just because it's a recent thing. But I will say it's been happening for forever now. I think we just now have like a phrase for it. Because I feel like a lot of games have just been like, we drop. But I think it's just because with games as a service like popping up, we are following it. But
I think it's only within the past like console generation that's really become a thing.
It's happened since 360 though.
So games have been getting released with bugs and stuff for forever, but the ability to fix it.
Yeah.
Because like N64 games weren't being able to get fixed until or ever. It would have to have been when games were like online, right?
Essentially,
when they were actually able to like patch them and stuff.
You probably just have a better memory than me, Harrison, because I can't really remember. I didn't play a lot of 360.
It was like
games.
360 and PS3. That's when they started.
But yeah,
okay.
I just can't think of any right now. If you have any examples,
Elder Scrolls did have that when it dropped. I think
for Oblivion, or
I think Oblivion, but I remember having to I think it was like the idea of updating more. Honestly, it was just more like having to update the game was also a huge thing. Back like in PlayStation, I remember like having to like download the software
on PlayStation,
and like yeah. I remember playing on PS3, and I'm like, man, this would take forever just to like download shit. And it's like, oh, this is when internet's actually important, or like even like having. I think that it just kind of, I think bugs just kind of has always been a thing, but I think the ability to actually like address them more often happened around that generation. And I think this is also kind of going back to my point was we keep pushing for new games because new gen has to push the boundaries, right? Which now we just have more accessibility on how we address those bugs. But it's also kind of, this is where I think it's good and where we can praise those that actually do it well. Like God of War, when they dropped this, they're like, this is the game. There are some bugs, but this is the game. And it still felt like a really good experience. So when I think now is just more of, we can actually praise the developers and publishers that do drop a fully fledged out game. I just lost my train of thought. With essentially just give them like more issues. Like praise and where it's actually warranted. But we also I think we also have to have the expectation that this is probably like the new norm. Like rounding back out to it.
Yeah. For like these giant games that are coming out.
Like I think it is just gonna be the norm because
unfortunately.
Like even if like I'm not trying to say all AAA games are games as a service, but that specific feature of games as a service where continued support is expected, I think it's just like it is easier for developers just to do that.
Oh, sorry, that's what it was. I was like, I think games as a service in my book is not support, because I think a game can be supported, but games as a service to me is continuing to drop content for it.
Yeah, it's like it's a new content. Yeah, it's just like they have new content. But I think a big feature of games as a service is like in addition to new content, it's just
balancing the game.
Yeah, it's like continual balance and like it's not like the game is released, we'll do support, and then a month later we're going to work on the next project. But yeah, that specific thing of continued support after release, I think it's just going to be expected.
Yeah, but
or like that'll be the new norm, just because from a developer standpoint, it's easier to just like the game is out, and we can basically have our day 1, day 2 players help us catch bugs. And that's not even like, that's not to sound malicious, but it is so much easier to get free QA.
Yeah. Because people want to play games, right?
Yeah, like they're gonna play it. And you're gonna know when people find something they don't like, or when they find something that's broken, you're gonna hear about it within like 30 seconds of someone finding it, which is way easier, and it's essentially free.
We've been talking about a lot of these like big games with these problems. Are you guys okay with this, or would you rather have something like they cut out, like content gets cut out to make like a more solid and stable release? Or are you okay with like having these like big scope games with some like issues, but you're still like enjoying the game?
I think the bad part now when you so when you say that, like I thought about like all these games, I'm like, well, the big games that have an issue is just because we've moved towards open world games. I think that's the big issue, because when I think about like just like fighting games and stuff, for instance, like that's that's more complete. It's just more like, oh, you're like it's more balancing changes at that point. It's not really bugs, it's just balancing the game, right? So it's just kind of
making
like
sure these characters,
it's kind of that gray area of
break the game. Yeah,
I guess it depends on what game you're playing, but for open world games, I have that expectation now, just from from the past decade, to be honest.
So you would rather have the big open world game rather than something smaller?
I think the moment, at least from what I've seen, the moment people hear, oh, they cut content, that's such a negative thing. It's like, oh, you just cut it out. Like, think about Fable. Fable was like promised so many things, but they just cut content. I'm like, it's a finished game, but you knew that there's more.
Gotcha.
Like, I remember hearing that like back then. It's like, wait, this like I think the reason why not many people, there's goodwill with companies that like, oh, if you continue like, if you actually like, here's the game, and it's just, if it's just buggy, but they've delivered on like a lot of things that they could. I mean, granted, CD Projekt Red did cut out some things. They did say, hey, we had to cut out some of the things that we promised. So they do get a knock on that. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, in comparison, like, if they just cut content and just like left it, I think that'd be bad. It's then the argument of, we have the technology, why not just fix it now? Which is why everyone praises the first patches when they don't realize, wait, that's not actually just gonna fix the game, like, outright.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not saying I'm okay with it. I always think it's better just to have a finished product, but I think we also had the temporary.
But you're saying, like,
to where it's like, if the moment you were like, hey, there's a bug, this game's actually trash, which is what you sometimes see online, which I'm like, guys, what the fuck?
Sure, yeah, you see the salt mines open up. But yeah, so like, because we're having these grander, more massive, more complicated games happening, then all this is just, it's expected that it's going to have some issues.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah. What about you, Luke? Would you rather have, like, smaller scopes? And I guess that all, like, this question also can be, like, influenced by your because Harrison likes open world games, so it can be affected by your preference for a type of game as well.
Affect it too.
Yeah. But what if there was, like, what if it was, like, a smaller scope game, but they, like let's say it was Persona 5, and they, like, had to take out a character in a storyline to, like, make sure the game didn't have any, like, bugs or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That it feels bad to me too.
Bad example, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, so it's different for me, honestly, because I don't really buy games day one anymore. Like, I can definitively say I bought Dark Souls 3 on release because I pre-ordered it. And then after that, unless I'm, like, completely forgetting something, I don't really buy games day one. And so for me, I'm okay with, like, just release the game and add in the content later, because by the time I play it, you're going to have all the content in anyway. It's like, that's with a few caveats. Like, I agree with Harrison. Like, I don't want you to cut content because usually the content they cut is stuff I like. But at the same time, a lot of what some AAA studios include in their, like, okay, we've released it and then we're going to include all these things later, I guess aren't as interesting. Like, it's stuff I kind of would have already expected.
Like cosmetics?
Like New Game Plus.
That's expected. Yeah.
Okay.
Like for when Witcher 3, I think Witcher 3 did, like, a full year of big updates where they added new stuff. And in the grand scheme of things, for me personally, they were things that I wouldn't be as excited for, because it's stuff that's like, okay, that's like I think the last thing they added was New Game Plus. And I guess New Game Plus for me is something I kind of already expect, because it's relatively easy to do a New Game Plus.
But not a lot of games do it.
No. But, like, in terms of just the raw coding you need for New Game Plus, it is not as difficult to add as some other things.
Right.
And I mean, like, Horizon Zero Dawn did that, where, hey, I think their last big update for the PS4 was we included New Game Plus and then some other features. I think Spider-Man PS4 did the same thing, where they had a big update where they included New Game
God of War
Plus.
did as well, like a little bit later.
Yeah. I guess, like, I would rather, yes, I would rather have a studio just release the game and support the game, add in the content you intended to. I guess it kind of just annoys me when the stuff they removed and then added in back later is stuff I would already expect.
So just to add on to that, that stuff for Witcher wasn't stuff that they removed. It was just additional things that people were praising. So this is where the goodwill came from, and I remember this, and I was like, actually, that's a good point. This was during a time when Ubisoft and like every other publisher was like, hey, we're gonna charge you for all these cosmetics, and it's like $5. CD Projekt Red was like, no, you guys deserve this for free. We could easily charge this, but we're not going to. And so it's not the new game plus, but it was like all like the additional quests, the like armor,
they
and
added
like all
a
that
bunch of
stuff.
They added content, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
I guess
it's in like a realm or a world where like
because
DLC is so prevalent, they just were like, here's all this stuff
it would
for free.
be the equivalent for me. Like, I can respect CD Projekt Red doing that because like it's a lot of free content. And this is probably going to sound bad, but it's also, I think it was a very calculated move to gain PR.
100%.
Because like, especially with the way games are now, and in the spirit of what I think of the cyberpunk genre, like in Cyberpunk 2077, after your initial character creation, you have 0 character customization. Like besides clothing, but you can't do like body mods and stuff like that. You can just add clothing. But if 6 months down the road, CD Projekt Red's like, hey, we finally included character customization, so you can customize your character whenever you want. That's good because that's what I like, but it's also like, I would see that more as them trying to recover goodwill than including that feature. And like, it kind of gets like, oh no, like no good deed goes unpunished type thing, or like you can never be altruistic just for the sake of being altruistic. But in a game that was supposed to be like one of the premier RPGs, and you don't have ongoing character customization, that's a big thing.
Is that like a thing though? Because even like back, like I'm trying to think of another game that I would do that, because I don't do that as often. I feel like that's a recent change.
Like it is a recent change, but these are all caveats because it's also like my feelings about Cyberpunk are probably a lot different than what CD Projekt Red ended up going with for Cyberpunk. But like with the original tabletop, there was a lot more emphasis on like both customizing / augmenting your character and how that affects your character, like in terms of your sanity stat. I think it was sanity, or like your human stat.
Oh, okay, I see where you're going.
So it's like a big mechanic in the game.
It was
that
a
they
big
like kind of threw out.
Yeah, I mean that's also like my own personal opinions of Cyberpunk 2077 is that it's very much a sci-fi open world GTA-esque game where they have a lot of the open world, which is really good, and they give you a lot of like freeform choices of how you approach things, like in combat or dialogue, or how you build your character. But the essence of Cyberpunk as a genre, I think, is not there. And that's just my own personal opinion. And I'm super biased because I played the original tabletop, and it's also, I think I just have a different interpretation of the Cyberpunk genre. But like the constant character customization and like constant optimizing of a character just isn't there. And they just kind of went for the aesthetic of Cyberpunk, which is cool. I like the aesthetic, but there's no like substance.
I would disagree in that I feel, or okay, I guess my experience so far from what you're just saying, I think they actually do apply a lot of like the mods and stuff, but I think I can see why they don't. They probably have talked about if you add more mods to sanity and like probably appearance wise, they probably did touch on that. This is more going based on like, oh, you can apply mods and certain shit, right? So like when you see you apply a hand mod, you do see it, but it's like you probably don't get like the cybernetics. You probably don't see it as much on like your eyes and like your cerebral and all that. And I wonder if that's like more, they probably did touch on like the sanity or like how people perceive you. And I wonder if that, because for me, that would be a detriment, because then I wouldn't apply mods, because then I'm like, oh, I won't look the way I did. This is based on like that.
Oh, you wouldn't like.
Yeah, then I'm like,
look. you wouldn't have the aesthetic that you would for in the beginning
which,
of your character.
That is, like, with the original tabletop, that's kind of the point. It's like, how much of your humanity are you willing to sacrifice to be like a stronger Netrunner?
Exactly.
And so and it's also like CD Projekt Red removed the ability to, like, because I think you could originally at will switch between first person, third person, and so probably going just to only first person outside of cutscenes probably did, and like going into vehicles and stuff probably changed the way they want to like handle your character, like aesthetics, and that's also like, because they were in pre-production for a while, that's probably something that got discussed and or dropped. It's just, as someone who's a bigger fan of like the cyberpunk genre as a whole, it's something I'm just going to nitpick about. It's the same thing where, like, I was making a comparison to someone else. Like, it'd be like if someone made a video game in the Worm universe and it was just like kind of a generic superhero game and didn't like pull in specific themes from Worm.
Yeah.
But that's just, I nitpick things I'm invested.
That makes sense though.
No, I get that. There's I forgot the example. I had like this perfect example, but it was some movie that I watched. I was like, oh yeah, like I liked it. It was fine. And I talked about it with a friend, and they were like, I hated this. And I don't even remember who the friend was, but it was because the source material. So someone not knowing about the source material, the movie was fine, but somebody coming in with the source material expectations, it was trash. And I totally get
that makes sense though.
Like I
that's
completely
like
understand.
A tale as old as like just having a book be. This is going to our. We've had a discussion on this before, like when we have adaptation.
Oh, we have. Okay.
Ian, you probably weren't paying attention at that point.
Oh, right. That was my topic. Dude, I don't remember like 75% of our episodes.
But, no, yeah, I mean that's another argument
I like, obviously you're never gonna have like perfect adaptations, and some adaptations end up adapting the material better. Like,
right.
At least me personally, I prefer the Lord of the Rings movies over the books, even though I really like the books. It's more of just the theme they're going for in the game Cyberpunk doesn't match the themes of the tabletop.
Which makes, I mean,
and that's fine, but I think the theme in the tabletop is more interesting and also pretty relevant, because one of the major themes in the tabletop is like anti-capitalist, anti-corporation. And like in real life that's probably really relevant because capitalism and or corporatism is like running rampant in the Western world.
Yeah, right. I see that in the game.
To get
I was gonna say let's
too
go back
far
to
off topic.
We're kind of all over the place. I derail.
No, it's good. If this happened, so taking this into like other media, what would your feelings about it be then? Because like I know, at least our feelings towards like the Snyder film is.
I don't think it can apply.
No.
Really?
No.
So like taking a book,
you republish it.
Let's say, well, no. Let's just take the most like the closest example I found was
Snyder Cut is a very special case. I don't think that applies to anything else.
Well, like I can see where Ian's coming from.
I think it just happens to,
because literally they made an entire film, edited and everything, sent it out, and now it's.
But because the circumstances where Snyder had to leave the production, so then that's why people are like, "Oh, give us the real cut." I don't think that would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, what if we see more of that?
I don't think it'll happen as often, because I don't. How often do you think a director will just leave in the middle? And if they do, I think the movie, like, I don't think people. I think it just happens to have a fan base for it.
Like, I guess a scenario I could see that kind of mirrors what Ian's mentioning is if Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire were like, hey, we're reshooting Spider-Man 3, and we were going to do it the original script way.
Yeah.
That would be an example. Or like, for some, like, an act of God just soars down and like we're reshooting Game of Thrones season 6, 7,
and all the actors,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, and
All
suddenly
I'm
all
down
of the
for
actors
it.
are like, "Yeah, we're back." They pull me back in, just when I thought I was out. But like, I think those circumstances are so wild.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think if
I'm trying to think of how to.
No, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was
I'm
gonna
trying to
just
like
fill in
formulate
the
my
time for
thoughts.
you, but like essentially, I don't think that's a. I think with the movie biz, at least, that's probably they'll probably get a worse rap because honestly, I think presentation is more important in a movie because you only have like an allotted like let's say like 2 hours, right? So if you have to redo it, I don't think as a director that's a good idea. Like that just shows like you're just not a good director, right? I think games is just like that special medium where you can adjust it.
It's like, do you consider the kind of soft reboots or soft remakes of movies kind of in the same vein, Ian, or no? Because like Spider-Man. You see, like you have the Spider-Man Raimi trilogy, and then you have Garfield's 2 Batman, Spider-Man movies, then you have Marvel's Spider-Man's movies. So like, is that close enough of a comparison, or like, I mean, I guess a better example of something that, well, it's not a better example, but something of like, okay, you had something really bad come out, and so like, do you redo is the Fantastic Four movie? You had the original Fantastic Four, then you had its sequel, The Silver Surfer, and then you had Fan-Four-tastic, and now they doing like Marvel now is doing their take on Fantastic Four. Like, is that something more relevant to what you're speaking of, or is that still something a little different?
Maybe I guess that is a little,
or because like I think you're talking more like in terms of like a game where you can have, because then in games even we just say remaster, right? While like here we're just updating a game. So I think you're.
Yeah, I would say what Luke's talking about to me would be more of like a retelling or a remaster.
The only other thing I could see, and like it's the only other thing I could think of, and they're already not doing it, is so they had Justice League come out that Whedon?
Whedon did the reshoots the first time.
Whedon did the reshoots, and now the Snyder Cut is Snyder's original take.
Right.
You could argue that with Suicide Squad, because didn't the director also leave,
it was just I think he went a different direction. It was still the same guy, but he's like, I wish I did it differently. Like,
there was a deviation, and they could have done what Snyder did. Like, we're gonna reshoot. They just canned it, and like we're just doing our own Suicide Squad, and James Gunn's gonna do it just completely different. It just has the name and the characters, completely different story. Like, it almost seems like it's more beneficial for them to not do what Snyder is doing.
It's just because there's so much fanfare. That's why I keep thinking Snyder Cut is like, and we also don't know if it's gonna work. That's the thing. It still hasn't happened. It works. Yeah. It could totally flop.
It could flop.
It could totally be useless, and it could be like, oh, there's just so much hype. So,
and I think especially like because we're talking about movies, I'm gonna keep using movies. Movies already kind of have that. Oh, we go to the theater to see it. And that probably is just a whole nother like can of worms.
Yeah.
You just don't want to do. Like with games, it's easy. It's just like, go download the thing. You have internet, the patch. So just download the thing.
Movies are more like an event.
Yeah, movies are like,
rather than
we have to send out new reels. We have to time slot them.
Yeah.
For all the theaters. Or you do like an HBO Max, which apparently is its own can of worms.
Like, it depends on how it's being sent out, because how we're describing movies is how games used to be. Like, once you send it out, it's done. You can't do anything. Yeah. But I think with technology you can do it. But like, think about it. I think movies, if they're going towards streaming, like, this is their bug fix. When they sent out like what movie? Oh my god, there's a movie on Disney Plus or something. They were able to edit out a certain section, or Netflix. They were able to edit. They're like, wait, here is the redone part, but it was their bug patch fix type of deal, where they're like, oh, let's take out this scene.
Oh, yeah,
like
okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, things have happened like where they when they
Mhm.
like try and censor shit, they'll like dub words over
Yeah, like you get the
characters.
PG-13 version for
Or
TV
they'll
on
cut
demand
out
movies.
It was very
Yeah,
recent, and
yeah.
I remember hearing that. I was like, oh, like I think
That's
it was
interesting.
Netflix because they're like, oh, they did it for that, but they won't do it for another show or something, or maybe it was Asia. I don't know.
Weird.
And then I thought of another example that
Ooh.
I think is relevant to talk about. You have the movie versions of the Percy Jackson series, of which somehow there were two. I heard
neither,
nothing
but
about
they
the
were.
second one, just to let everybody know. And Rick Riordan, who was the author, was able to like Disney now owns the property, and they're doing a Disney Plus series. So like it's kind of like they're just remaking the whole thing instead of trying to like fix what's broken.
Actually,
Yeah.
I just thought of the perfect, probably one of a good or a good example. Star Wars. They've re-released that shit multiple times, but they've edited it out. They've added
yeah, you're
the joke
right.
how
They
Lucasfilms
added
would
the
just add
no.
CGI to multiple iterations.
Wow, yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Do we like that? I don't.
That's
Think...
no.
I
So
don't
like
really know what
so
you're
like the
talking
prequels,
about.
right? When they let's say the prequels and the original trilogy, they did it for
prequels?
both. But I remember, I
I
don't remember
didn't
which
know
one,
that.
but it was like it was on Tatooine, and they would add stormtroopers, and then they would add like more like bantha, or they would add like they would keep adding stuff at each iteration, and it was like to where the big joke was they're just adding CGI just to like cover things up, or just George Lucas just loves CGI that they'll just keep adding it, which then came to the argument of now people care more if when you see if Star Wars film is like was that practical or was that all CGI? So it's just
Yeah.
I think that's like one big comparison to like if you redid a movie, Star Wars was probably one of like a good example of that. Of do people like it or do people just fucking hate the end? Because then they're like, oh, do you have the original version where it has like nothing, or and it was up, or like even Yoda. They adjusted Yoda in the original prequel where it was a doll. It was the original OG doll, but then later on they just added CGI, a CGI version. Yeah, it was a CGI version of Yoda.
Really?
Like there's a comparison to that, and it's yeah.
I didn't
Like
know
I
that.
didn't realize that was a change.
Dude, how valuable are my like Star Wars VHSs?
Because I was gonna say look at
I'm
it,
gonna
and you'll
look
probably
this up
see a
later.
doll version of Yoda, like the doll from the 456. Because then later on they just added CGI versions of Yoda to match across. So I mean there are those instances, but you can't they would have to re-release those movies. But with tech, who knows? They could move towards like how gaming does it and just edit out certain sections of.
And that's like a lot different because you're paying again for a new product, whereas in games,
because
you don't have like they're just fixing it rather than making you pay for a whole new product that's mostly the same.
The more we talk about it, I'm like, I'm starting to remember stuff. I'm like, oh, they are moving towards that, and we don't know. I don't know how. I don't think I like it either.
Well, it's, I guess because like you talked about it now, and like they just they re-released Lord of the Rings in 4K,
and that's just. I mean, that's
although
a
I mean
remaster,
I guess seen as
I mean that's a plus
positive.
though. That's nice. It's like the ability. But would you like to have that as like a? It's then the whole should that be free? But how do you update that? You know, it's like I think that's the movement towards streaming, where you could just get it because you're already paying for the certain. Anyway, I feel like. Yeah, I was like, we're getting into that stuff, and I'm like,
territory.
This is like a whole nother topic.
Yeah, because like you want to go nitty gritty. It's like, do you like that movies have the extended versions or
it's
the
like
theatrical
it's the theatrical like the no, but then they would it's like the argument of this is not the actual product. Oh,
yeah,
right.
Just
yeah,
like, how
like,
deep do you want to get into this?
Yeah. Not that. Yeah, we can definitely use that as a different topic. And I think we'll call it here because that gets into some.
We're devolving.
Yeah, that I do find that really interesting though, and I don't know how I feel about that either. But yeah, I guess we'll call it there. We answered a lot of what I was wanting to talk about. So Let me just find my little
Tappity
tab
tab.
here. Tappy tab. Thanks for listening, guys. We're on Twitter, at SuperBossPod. Tweet us. Tell us things, topic suggestions, questions. You can email us at superbossfeedback@gmail.com.
I was going to say maybe for 2020 or the 2021, we should probably scrap that.
Yeah.
Just scrap
the outro?
Gmail. Yeah, just tweet us.
The Gmail. Oh. Do
No,
people email anymore?
I don't even do it, so why do I
have to
expect
for
people to do?
work. Yeah, it's like I have to for work, but even
Yeah.
then, it's like all automated. So
Oh.
no,
Just DM
people
us.
don't email.
That's
anymore.
funny. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Yeah,
Tell-
just
tell-
DM us. I'll give you a. No, I'm not gonna say that. You can follow us on. I was gonna say I'll give you my.
Don't
I'll give
say
you my
it then.
digits,
Just don't
but
say
I'm
it
not
then.
gonna give you my digits. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook. Yeah, just let us know how we're doing. Let us know if you have any ideas or thoughts, and if you're on YouTube, give us your opinions on our topics that we talk about. What do you think? So yeah, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you
I was
next
gonna
week.
say this is probably
Or
the last
actually,
one
will
for
we?
the year.
No, it'll be
Yeah.
this is the
This
last
is our
one
last
for the
week,
year.
yeah.
See you next
Dang,
year.
so we'll see you next year. Yeah.
See how this works.
Ha ha ha.
Don't you mean ho ho ho?
Shut up.
All right, we're up.
Thanks for
Goodbye.
listening. Thanks for
Goodbye.
listening. Thanks for
Goodbye.
listening. Thanks for
Goodbye.
listening.